Hello everyone. Today's lesson is something college students need. It's very important. The presentation today is about the course or the subject language testing. Today we're going to study something about assessment and evaluation. We will know the definitions, the types, the differences. So what you need to do is to watch this presentation like 3 times, and please concentrate well, because I need you to understand deeply every single thing I say. If you understand this presentation well, you will get saturated, and that is the target. So let's start. Assessment basics. Assessment is a broad and rapidly growing field with a strong theoretical and empirical base. Yeah, it's a broad and rapidly growing field. Actually, it's a new field for us to study in Libya, especially at the college level. It's broad. Why it's broad? Because there are a lot of techniques, a lot of systematic and scientific stages and steps and facts we need to know about assessment. And it's rapidly growing because we need assessment everywhere, even in our daily life. We need to assess the way we live. We need to assess the way we think, the way we speak. So assessment is in our life originally, with a strong theoretical and empirical base. And we have to focus on the word base. It is singular. That means theoretical and empirical is one base together. We have something theoretical. We study it in print, books or textbooks or presentation somewhere else, or on the web, about the theory, the definition, the steps, the stages, the differences, and then we're going to implement this theoretical part. So it's theoretical and empirical, practical. Okay? However, you don't have to be an assessment expert to employ sound practices to guide your teaching. You don't have to be that veteran. You don't have to be very good at assessing to guide your teaching. What you need to know is what is going to be presented in our presentation today. Here we present the basic concepts you need to know to become more systematic in your assessment planning and implementation. Systematic, that means you know the procedure to assess. And we know if we need to assess, we have some kinds of assessments, activities, and we will know inshallah as we go on. So we need to be systematic the way we plan our assessment, and when we implement it. Implementation is very important. When there is something wrong, the way we implement, we need to fix it. There is nothing wrong with the theory. There is something wrong with the action when you apply the theory. Why should assessments, learning objectives, and instructional strategies be aligned? They should focus these 3 components or elements of teaching or learning processes. They need to focus on one target. They move together, because assessments should reveal how well students have learned what we want them to learn, while instruction ensures that they learn it. Instruction here means teaching. So, when I assess, students, I should know how well, if students they learned very well, there's something wrong, there are some difficulties, some weak areas I need to address, I need to focus on, there's something wrong with my methodologies, there's something wrong with the activities I use. So I'm going to, let's say, improve my teaching style. That's for better learning, of course. That's for the good of the learners. For this to occur, assessments, learning objectives, and instructional strategies, means teaching, okay, methodologies and strategies, need to be closely combined, aligned, united, so that they reinforce one another. Okay, now I want the students to learn how to speak on the phone. Okay, that's the objective. And then I'm going to use some activities and methodologies to help students learn how to make a conversation on the phone. After that, it comes the role of assessment. And then I assess the students, I observe, I test the learners about this topic, which is making a conversation on the phone. And then I see how well they have learned this. So all of these three elements, assessments and learning objectives and instructional strategies, they all work on helping students to learn how to make a conversation on the phone. Later we will discuss the relationships. Let's move on. To ensure that these three components of your course are aligned, ask yourself the following questions. Okay, what's the question about learning objectives? Okay, let's see. What do I want students to know how to do when they leave this course? When they leave means when they finish the course, when they finish the lesson. What do I want them to know? Okay, so that's the objective. That, for example, they go home being able to make a conversation on the phone. Assessment. What kinds of tasks will reveal, will show, will find out, will present whether students have achieved the learning objectives I have identified? So when I planned the learning objectives of the course or of the lesson, I need to know how can I help students learn this? So the tasks, the activities, the tests, okay? Instructional strategies. What kinds of activities in and out of class will reinforce my learning objectives and prepare students for assessments? That means like the activities that you use, role play, pair work, matching, homeworks, okay? And if we need to order these three components, what is the first one? Okay, the learning objectives, and then instructional strategies, okay? The third one is the assessment. And assessment, I can call it the reflection. We have two terms, reflexiveness and reflectiveness. So in the reflectiveness, the learner will show what he or she has learned. But for the reflexiveness, the teacher will know what he or she has taught. So the reflection is very important for both the students and the teacher. How is it important? We will know. What if the components of a course are misaligned? They should not intersect. They should not interrupt each other. They should work parallelly towards the objective. What's the objective? Successful learning, better teaching. If assessments are misaligned with learning objectives or instructional strategies, it can undermine means weaken both students' motivation and learning. So there will be something wrong. You will understand more if you consider these two scenarios. Let's imagine that for the lesson, okay? Your objective is for students to learn how to apply analytical skills, okay? But your assessment measures only factual recall, what they remember. So they do not match, because you are assessing something that you haven't planned. I planned for helping students to learn how to apply analytical skills. Consequently, its students hone their analytical skills and are frustrated. Why? Because the exam does not measure what they learned. The exam does not measure what it is supposed to measure. For example, I am teaching writing, and I give my students questions about grammar or about spelling. Students are expecting to be that they will be tested in writing, not in grammar and vocabulary. They are expecting to find questions about writing. Write about your last holiday, write a letter. So a question about writing is not like fill in the gaps with the correct form of the verb. That's grammar, that's not writing. And when you correct, the students say, you are weak at grammar. You have to focus on and study harder the irregular verbs. What about writing skills? What about coherence, cohesion? What about discourse markers? Something related to the lesson that, or the objective students have learned the lesson for. The second scenario, your assessment measures students' ability to compare and critique the arguments of different authors. That's the test or the assessment. But your instructional strategies, your teaching, focus entirely on summarizing the arguments of different authors. There's no like comparing. You just summarize this argument, and the students summarize this argument and that argument. They do not compare. They do not reflect. They do not criticize. So, consequently, students do not learn or practice the skills of comparison and evaluation that they will be assessed. You will assess the skills of comparison and evaluation, because students are studying two arguments. They will be assessed how to compare, how to evaluate, how to reflect. But when I am teaching them, I taught them something else. I told them how to memorize. They learned how to summarize. They haven't learned how to evaluate, how to compare. So this does not work. Your assessment must measure the learning objective. Your instructional strategies must focus entirely on achieving the learning objectives. So these three components, they are one body. They are interrelated and work as one component. What is the difference between formative and summative assessment?